would like this to be an informal conversation, and so if you have questions, please ask. But maybe I'll start with music first, and I'll play two movements from Domenico Zipoli Suite. This is a piece from the Baroque period, and Zipoli is not well known at all, but he was a great composer who died very young. He's Italian, lived in Spain, and moved to Argentina. This is in the 18th century, to be a missionary, and he died very young there. So this is two movements from Zipoli Suite. Tell you a little bit about myself. I come from a musical family. My parents are both pianists, so I didn't have much choice when I was growing up. Music was everywhere in the house. My parents were teaching students at home, and I would, be absorbed with music, and records, and so on. I was born in Uzbekistan. Have you heard of Uzbekistan? Yeah. And at the age of 8, my family and I moved to Israel, where I grew up, continued my piano studies. And it was a great place to grow up because there was a fantastic orchestra, the Israel Philharmonic, and I would go to, as a kid, would go to hear them play, and I was privileged to play with them at the age of 10, and this was a great exposure for me, and it really shaped my being, really. And you guys are so fortunate to have the Detroit Symphony right next to you here. How many of you go to concerts? Yeah, good. You should all go. It's such a, really, it's such a great orchestra you have right here. So, how many of you play piano? Cool. Do you play classical music? Any of you? No? How many of you sing? Great. And did you start music before you came to this school, or?
Yes.
So it's a continuation for you, huh?
Yes.
Right. Would you like to hear more music?
Yes.
I'll play the great American composer Gershwin. 3 Preludes by George Gershwin. I also went to a high school that was all arts, and music, visual art, dance, ceramics. So it's great to be here in such school. Do you do collaborations with other departments? What do you do? Musical, okay. Yeah, great. So they did decorations and...
Visual artists do decorations and set design. We had theaters, majors, athletes,
fantastic. Yeah. So I've always loved drawing since I was a kid. Has been my passion. I never really studied it with teachers, but first thing I do in a new city, I go to a museum, and that's how I learn, really copying great painters. And so the program that I'm actually playing tonight for ProMusica Detroit will be around Pablo Picasso, whom I'm sure you know, one of the, if not the greatest artists of the 20th century. And so I decided to choose pieces that would somehow be connected to his life and paintings in a very subjective, my own personal way. And so the next piece that I'm going to play for you is by Enrique Granados, a Spanish composer. Probably the first really great Spanish composer. And so he incorporated the Spanish folk music into his compositions. And you'll hear a lot of guitars and a lot of dance in the piece called Fandango by the Candlelight. And what's really cool about this music is that it's based on another painter called Francisco Goya, who was also a big influence on Picasso. And so Granados wrote Fandango by the Candlelight based on the paintings of Goya that have this kind of dance scenes, and they can be quite evocative with the light and so on. So you'll hear a lot of that, and you'll hear a lot of guitar strumming and a lot of castanets and very typical Spanish rhythms in this piece. Do you guys have any questions for me? Yes?
What song do you do with that first piece you played?
The first piece is 3/4.
I told you to play.
Yeah. So the first piece I played was a Baroque suite, and the Baroque suites are mostly all dances. They're all dances from all over the world. And usually the first movement is an allemande, it's a German dance. Then the courante, which is a French or Italian dance. Then there's always a sarabande, which is a slow Spanish dance, kind of, it's kind of a mournful, soulful dance. And then the jig is always the last movement, and the jig is a fast dance from Scotland.
Was there a time change in the first piece? Was there a time change in the first piece?
No. But there was a lot of what we call hemiolas, which is, so if the piece is in 3/4, then sometimes the composer changes it into 2 beats per 2 measures. So it becomes, if it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, the composer would do 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah. That's called hemiola. Yes?
So I have 2 questions. So my first question is, what do you listen to like on a daily basis? And then 2, what exercises do you do to get your fingers like to
I listen to all kinds of music. I have very eclectic taste. Like I listen to a lot of folk music and a lot of world music. I love Indian classical music, for example. I love some rock music. love jazz. My hero is Bill Evans and Duke Ellington and Brad Meldo, Keith Jarrett, Miles Davis. These are people that I admire. What exercises? You know, I never had any like daily exercises. I know a lot of teachers do that, but I somehow avoided that and just learned from real music. Like I would take Chopin etudes or Liszt etudes and work on them, and that kind of was the basis of my technique. I was just working slowly, and you start slowly always because you don't want to tense your muscles in the morning. So you start from slowly, and your entire body just is waking up, and your ears are waking up. So you just start by listening, and slowly you increase the tempo, but always through the ear. Yeah, never automatic.
Because I know a lot of times when we, like, I can do stuff, like, in a specific moment, and then when I go back there to, like, practice it, like, how I do that, like, I can't really do it again, so that's why.
So you do it sometimes, but not consistent.
Yeah.
What are the passages that you can't do sometimes?
Okay, so, like, when I'm, because I play with Will a lot, he's right here, like, a lot of times when we, like, play with each other, we, like, kind of feed off each other.
Yeah.
Like, in that specific moment, we'll hear something, and then we'll do it. And then, like, a lot of times when we go later, like, let's say the next day, we're trying to, like, okay, what do we do?
What kind of music do you play?
Yeah, our mainly we play together.
Jazz. So you improvise. Yeah. Why don't you record yourself, like on the phone, and record yourself and analyze it? So you record and something goes well, or doesn't go well, and you can listen to it and actually analyze it and slow it down and hear what you're doing. And that analysis is everything, you know? You do things because if you're gifted, you just do things and you don't know why or how. But it's important to have analysis, to analyze what you're doing later on, yeah? Because it's overwhelming to do it at the same time, yeah? So you analyze it afterwards and try to build on that. And come up with exercises about a specific problem that you can do. You know, if you do something and you can't do it, understand why. And come up with exercises that will help you to overcome that specific problem. Is it helpful? Yeah. Yeah.
Can you do multiple glissandos, like, successively?
Yeah.
It's like, I know you heard that's, like, kind of hard to do on piano, like.
Glissandos?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the action. If the action is not too heavy, it's not that hard. You know, it's just kind of, your hand just does it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Another.
Yeah. But you can do glissandos in many different ways. You can do it with just your nails, or just one finger. But if you want something more powerful, you use like 3 fingers. It becomes. But be careful with, don't press too hard because some keys are quite sharp, and you can cut your flesh, which is not pleasant.
Do you have anything technical that you're kind of currently working on? Like anything you're trying to master right now?
Yeah, I work, every day I have different challenges. Because the music, I play different music all the time. Like this week I'm playing 4 different programs. And so I'm constantly just learning new music. But tonight I'm going to play, and maybe I'll play at the end of our meeting, a piece by Stravinsky called Petrushka, which is a ballet, and it's quite challenging technically. Yes?
Have you done any improvisation as far as your concerts or
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I love improvising. I've always done it as a kid. And then I started writing it down and became composition. I don't know the distinction between composition and improvisation, but I guess, I don't know if there is any. But yeah, I have a few friends who play jazz and done some of that. But I don't do it regularly. Yes? Oh. Yes?
What is your memorization process?
Memorization?
Yeah, how do you go about memorizing?
Yeah, it's a mysterious process. It just, you know, I work on just 4 or 8 bars at a time, and very slowly. And if you play it enough time, your body just knows it, you know, because memory is a funny thing. It's not just, it's a combination of physical memory, of visual memory, of oral memory. You hear, you know exactly where the next sound will be. So it's a very interesting and fascinating subject, actually. But I don't quite understand it, but it just happens somehow, right? I'm told we have a few minutes left, and maybe I'll play for you. The last piece will be Petrushka by Stravinsky. Petrushka, yeah. And as I said, it's a ballet, and he wrote this in 1911 for this dance troupe called Ballet Russe, the Russian ballet, which was very famous in Paris. And like most of the great composers at the time wrote music for this troupe. This particular piece became extremely famous because it was quite a new language that Stravinsky used. Very, very virtuosic, extremely virtuosic and full of color. Just new coloristic possibilities of the instrument. The story is Petrushka is a puppet, but he has human emotions. And so he falls in love with a ballerina, but she doesn't reciprocate his love. And so he goes into this anxious state, and there's a lot of conflict happening. I'm not going to get into details, but then at some point he gets killed, and the police arrives, and it's a tragedy. But then at the end of the piece, there is a moment where there's a shadow by Petrushka doing this. And of course it's all theater. Yeah, it's all theater. It's a puppet, or is it real? We don't know. So it's quite a extraordinary ballet. Yes. I'm sorry? I went so in Israel I went for 1 year to the Rubin Academy in Tel Aviv. Then at age 17 I moved to Philadelphia to study at the Curtis Institute of Music. I was there for 5 years, and it was an incredible place to study. And then I did my master's at Juilliard for 2 years. Yeah. And then I just stayed in New York after college, and now in the last 5 years or so I've been going to Canada because my wife works in the orchestra in Calgary, so we moved to Calgary, and that's how I ended up there. Yes,
What does she do? Is she a pianist too?
she's a violinist.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we play a lot of jam music together. So, guys, I'm going to play Petrushka by Stravinsky. And thank you so much.